Welcome everyone to today's Audit Tuesday. In this session, YouAttest will spotlight the European Union's DORA guidance, that is the Digital Operational Resilience Act. To help explain the subject, we are lucky to have Ralf Mennegatti, a recognized authority in governance, cyber, and compliance. Welcome, Ralf.
Hello, Bill.
Yeah,
Nice
first of all, Ralf, can you please introduce yourself to the Audit Tuesday audience?
Yes, I'm a financial consultant since 35 years, working mostly in Europe and sited in Luxembourg. So I work in Luxembourg, Frankfurt, London, Vienna, and Zurich, amongst others. And mostly I work since 15 years in regulatory projects, and I'm a change manager. So I bring always the good news of a new regulation up and coming.
Yeah, well, thank you. Ralf, what is EU's DORA Compliance Act, and why does it matter?
Well, this regulation is the first one that brings through the all European supervisory agencies or authorities together the so-called cyber security. And the problem was always that there were a lot of IT risk management regulations and others, but nothing really like an overarching framework. And now finally, after when COVID came, there was such a high rising number of cyber attacks that the regulators said, no, we need really something that makes much more sense and that goes much, much deeper and wider in all of that. So what they did then was they had these joint seats from the banks, from the asset managers and insurances. It's called ESA, so it is simply something that they did that also for data protection, for GDPR and so on. But in this case, it was now finally something that they said, no, we need to address everything. We need to address the forensics. We need to address the incident management. We need to address the standards of third-party management. And also we need to have also regularly testing, since they do stress testing for the banks in the crisis 2008. They found that quite helpful now for cyber attacks to do the same, to get there and to establish a standard. Okay.
Oh, well, great. Do you want to throw up a few slides? And
yes, I prepared some slides to give you a quick overview. Then I will just open it and see if I can.
No worries.
Share my screen. So.
And Ralf, tell the audience, where are you based out of?
Well, I'm based in Luxembourg.
That's pretty cool.
Yes,
That's
and well, Luxembourg is small, but it is actually the after the United States the biggest fund and asset management hub worldwide, because actually it has the most.
I didn't know that.
Funds are cited here in Luxembourg that are distributed and from here, and the regulators are quite proud of their fund industry. So in Luxembourg, they have more than I think 6 trillion euros under management right now.
Wow.
So it's quite a lot. So let me quickly open the slides. I have prepared just
We are going to be seeing your screen. We're seeing it right now.
See it? Yeah, let me just open it here. So
yeah.
Do you see my?
It was called DAQS, and now it's going to try to show the whole thing. Perfect.
Okay.
You're rocking and rolling.
So you see here, first of all, the DORA goals are easy to explain. It is strengthening security and operational resilience, but this is a very big hole that they have to dig in, because to get everything under one rooftop, you will see that takes a lot of details here. So the uniform and consistent requirements for harmonization means simply they wanted to create one standard and not forget in the third part, not forget the principle of proportionality. Of course, you cannot demand, let's say, to be as detailed as a large bank for smaller financial institutions or companies, but still it should speak one language, and it should describe all the elements, incidents, and matters and rules in a language and also in a way that is comparable for each body. So let me quickly go to the timeline. Timeline is that, as I said already, when COVID came up in 2020, they started already to see this is really something that we need to address. They had some plans, but right now then it got some urgency, of course. And then in 2023, it was finally done that they said, okay, we can now put it into force on 17th of January 2023. This was simply then once that is done, that all the national institutions and national regulators can then be active and do some implementation work on the national side, let's say, to bring it really into life, describe the implementing standards on a technical and regulatory way. And so that means finally on the 17th January 2025, after that is done, then DORA will be finally live and applicable. That means from that moment on, from the 17th January 2025, you need to report all your cyber incidents if they have a certain severity. That is all defined, of course, in a special form with special data to the regulators. And also you need, if any audit comes, you need to fulfill all the DORA regulatory standards described in there are several hundred pages there in the regulation, also including data forms, reporting forms, and as well certain audit forms. And that's also why we are here. We will talk later about the identity management audits that play a pivotal role. Yeah. Okay. So another review is planned 3 years later. Let's see if that in our fast times will be applicable. This is just, like right now proposal. The DORA page says that we should be prepared that this gets really a lot of traction, because they said that is now a very, very important step for the European regulators. Yes, because it is, if you see the rising incidents of cyber attacks, it does not stop, right? So I just read this week when I was putting my slides together, I said this is in Germany, there was a bigger insurance that had a breach where 340,000 client data were stolen. Okay, so it is apparent, it is everywhere, and Bill, what shall I tell you? It is really amazing, when you see here, I wanted just maybe to give you very quick part, because I don't want to really kill you with all the details, but I tell you which parts are really, really detailed and really big. This is the second one here. ITC risk management is okay, because that is something that is really well established in all ITs, hopefully. But the second column here, the third-party risk management, this is really something that they really set up new. And when you go on the ESMA page, for example, you have already a lot of so-called training and test documents where you can see what you have to do in order to fulfill the DORA regulation regarding your third-party management and risk management. That means not only that you need to now have a database with all the special data, contractual data, and so on. So they give you really hints on how you have to measure the standards that each one of your providers will deliver. Okay. So you see here down there is a monitoring critical third-party service provider asked for. This supervisory framework is also interesting for all the companies that are providers, like, for example, YouAttest here from Garrett and Bill that represent the company. These kind of service companies need to fulfill all that framework and need to be registered there. The second big part is the ICT incident reporting. That means simply any incident regarding cybersecurity, any breach of security, any bigger event where either data are stolen or destroyed or whatever happened there has to be reported in a special way. And so that means also you have to implement certain data. You have to have a lot of data present. And when you have to report such an incident, you have templates to fill out and so on. So this is also already the second part that gives you headaches with new data to follow up to and to manage. And then the third part is what I spoke before of, the testing of digital resilience. And that testing was before, like here, the basic testing that was already also known, that was in the frame of, let's say, risk management or IT security mostly present. But now it has, under DORA, a two-part framework, whereas the so-called TLPT, this is the threat-led penetration tests that are right now for systemically important financial companies with a high level of ICT maturity to be done. That means simply this is similar to other regulations. First, the big ones, the too big to fail and other tier one companies need to do that. And this will be slowly broken down for smaller companies over the years. I expect that in 2 or 4 years, they might have then a second wave of so-called simpler penetration testing for other companies, or they might, change the criteria to important companies. There are important companies that can be very small and still very important, right? So this is something that is right now a little bit, it is not yet defined till the last. They start with one thing, but I'm sure that here they will change certain things. I wrote here in the last line Tiber EU as a blueprint. Tiber EU is the first so-called penetration and a cyber attack testing scenario that was established from the European regulators. So that means that they have created already a little framework. I'm sure that some people of you have heard of that already. And this is used, they say here, as a blueprint. That means this is the right, but only a first step. This is not the end of everything. And last but not least, I found that important, but it is not, let's say right now, it does not have yet too much of a mandatory taste. That is the so-called information sharing and cyber exercises. The regulators expect from the whole industry to exchange the informations, to help each other with some reports or with some whatever hackathons and other events and information exchange, to see that here you are not alone, in the task to get to that level. Okay. So I hope I gave you now a little overview here. You can, of course, Garrett, if you want, we can share these 3 slides
available afterwards, and we can even post it to the link in this LinkedIn chat.
Okay,
right.
Thank you so much.
So, Ralf, who must comply with this act?
So in generally speaking, every financial institution, every bank, every asset manager, every insurance, and all the financial services industry. This is really overarching, and that shows already that that the ESA did that, the European supervisory agencies and authorities, and not only, let's say, the banks or so, because they wanted really to have something from the width and from the depth, something unique and something final that they have now created, that standard.
Well, what gaps do you see in compliance, especially around identities?
Well, this is the point is that when I read that, a lot of clients asked me that, yeah, should we make a gap analysis? We have already IT risk management. We have already so many handbooks. We have business continuity. We have cyber resilience and so on, blah, blah, blah. But I said, no, you have to really see that there will be some gaps. There will be gaps, for example, in how do I put all these data together for a correct incident report? How put I all the data together to have a complete overview over my third-party agreements, my service level agreements with outsourced services? And for example, if an auditor comes, how shall I report to him? Where do I, start here? And there we come to a point that when you read all of that and you see the requirements for testing, the requirements for the incidents, the requirement for the third-party management, then you know that you need to do a lot of homework and a lot of things regarding organization of data and organization of principle and thorough processes. And when I spoke of identities, of course, I know YouAttest since several years now, and I could see right now that the urgency to have a thorough identity management, because with identity, everything starts, right? So still, what I think not everybody knows is that most cyber attacks are man-in-the-middle attacks, are attacks of people, of either employees or ex-employees who know the systems, who know how to get in, who know how to create damage. And as we all know, there are always certain temptations that lead to these kind of events, right?
Thanks. And then specifically, there are requirements around identity attestation. For example, quantifying exactly what users have access to. Doesn't DORA call that out?
Yes. There is, for example, in Article 24 or 25, I think, from the DORA regulation, for example, they say you have to have a thorough identity management. That means not only on the IT side, of course, but mostly on the roles where you need to really define that you don't over or under privilege your users, that they have exactly the rights that they need, that they have also normal behavior. That means that you see who logs in. There is no need for people to log in whatever at 3 o'clock in the night, but things like that happen, and you need to see, you need to have a full evidence of that, especially when there is an incident, the so-called attestation of what happened in your network, and the attestation of which users did what and which users had which rights is essential, right? So you need to address that. You need to address that centrally. And it is not only an IT business, it is a business for the people who work based on, let's say, giving privileges to users. This one is an administrator, this one is an auditor, this one is let's say, brings in daily operational data, and so on. So you need to have really a good overview for that.
Well, that's great. So, that just leads into, in your experience, do you think all these customers are up where they should be on their identity governance and identity attestation?
I don't see, let's say, at the moment, the case that you really go now to somebody and says, yeah, you can collect now the data from 200 applications and even to extract that and to do something with it in an Excel sheet or something is a nightmare. So people need to have a good organization around that. They not only need simply monitoring tools, but they need really management tools. They need tools that provide overview, that provide also analytical thinking and analytical data. And so these kind of things need to be prepared, and they really also need to be held up against DORA. That means whatever you have right now, you need to review it in some way, right? You need to review it. You need to see, is this enough? Is this really something that answers all my headaches here? And I tell you, you will get more headaches if you don't do anything, right? So I give you a short overview. I had one client that he gave me his, let's say, his status quo, and I gave him a list of 400 tasks that he should do in order to provide some DORA gap analysis. And that was quite, let's say, quite a moment to see his face, to see, you know, a list of 400 tasks to answer. So people will really underestimate it when they start too late. When they read it right now, okay, say they can say, okay, yeah, that there's a lot of single points and we need to address that and give that to people. But this is really something where the regulator says already, this is really need to be steered from the top. That means this is C-level stuff. DORA must be addressed by the board of directors, by the executives, and not only this is not an IT theme, or this is not something for risk managers. These are just providers, and this must be steered from the C-level.
Thanks. And Garrett, isn't this where YouAttest can help with some of those
Absolutely.
400 items?
Absolutely. I love what Ralf was saying. He says, listen, I mean, you know, there's this regulation out here, and it's, you know, a combination of stuff in you know, that's been written before, but it's quantified, right? It's quantified. It says these are the controls. This is what you have to do, right? If you're dealing with this data. And a key part of the control is who has access. Who has access to this information? Okay. And that's what YouAttest provides. You all see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Look at that. Okay, so we are identity attestation, basically conducting the process, and it's a process, right? It's not just here's the facts. Everyone who has access is good. No, it's an attestation process, and we'll do a little demo. That's what Kashif will be doing a little bit. Is who has access to the sensitive data, in the case of financials, usually called PII, personal identifiable information, okay? Who has access to this, and who attests that they should have access? That's not just the person who runs IT, that's the business owner. And so we created a whole workflow of doing this. So watch this. This is how we work. So here's your poor risk manager. And they got all these regulations. Now they got, you know, DORA in this, okay? And they get all these identity resources. This is how we all can work together, okay? Here comes YouAttest, and then with the advisement of Ralf, and it could be your personnel as well, we have the ability for that who runs our cloud council to take input from these identity sources, right? Quantify them, and then without code, and that integration we're talking about here, and Kasha will show a demo, we're talking minutes, not months, not years, okay? Is that what we can do is that it pushes out an attestation campaign, also called a recertification. It says, hey, sales manager, you have these 8 people who have access to this Salesforce data, and they all have right permission. Are you good with that? And that manager has to attest. And it goes down the line. It goes into your AWS. It goes into your Azure AD. It goes into your AD. And it attests to all these rights. And then it creates an attestation report, an actual report that can go to the security manager, the compliant managers, and always goes to the auditors. Okay. We are the friend of the internal auditor. The person saying, wow, I've got all this tests, got this daunting. Ralf tells me I have to get an attestation report. Okay, great. That's where Ralf guides you with YouAttest in conducting these. Okay. And just, lastly, many of y'all are still doing this manually, with spreadsheets and emails. It's first of all, it's flawed. Many times those reports, I've seen one report as much as 60% of errors. We automate this, we quantify, we make it repeatable. And that's what's nice. Repeatable, quantifiable. Okay, keep going, Bill. Tell us what's next.
Yeah, well, that's perfect lead in. Let's have Kasha do the demo.
Hey,
Take
thanks,
it away.
Bill. Garrett, thanks, Ralph. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. I hope you can hear me loud and
Your
clear.
audio is great and your screen is crystal clear.
Perfect. So here is the YouAttest dashboard. As Ralph and Bill and Garrett mentioned, you need to have an audit report at the end of an identity access review. Who has access to your resources, your sensitive data, and what they can do when they're inside those resources. So YouAttest has automated the whole process by, first of all, plugging into your IAMs, for example, your Entra ID, your Oktas, your whatever IAM you're using. That's the starting point. But then you have other resources that are not tied to your IAMs. We have the CSV import. We can create audit that way. So I'm going to start to show you the basic flow of how we fetch the entitlements and how we delegate it out to the relevant individuals within the company to go through those identities and decide whether their access should be certified or it should be revoked. So we start usually at the integration, which is pretty simple. We integrate with most of the IAMs, mainly with Okta, with Entra ID, Ping1, Jump Cloud, and we are bringing in more as well as we go along. Here is how you can create these audits once YouAttest is integrated with your resources, your IAMs. You simply need to give this tool the API source, which could be your Okta, which could be your Azure AD or Entra ID. Give it a name according to the relevance. For example, if it's an application audit, you can name it after the application. And then you need to give it a date range within which you would like your managers and reviewers to complete the task. It could be a week, it could be a couple of weeks, depending upon how many number of users you're dealing with or how many identities you're dealing with. Upon clicking next, since we are plugged into your IAM, it will display a list of all the resources, all the applications and groups you have in there. So you can go and select multiple groups and multiple applications, or you can target a single app, for example, a finance app, to see who has access to this application because it has a lot of data. And a lot of people will not have access to it, or they should not have access to it. They should not have access privileges. So it will give you a picture of what anyone who has access to it can see within that application. So once you click done, the YouAttest tool will fetch that information, the entitlements, the metadata in real time for you and display it in a format that you can recognize those individuals. You can see their profile attributes. You can see a bunch of other details that will help a reviewer decide whether their access should be granted or it should be revoked. And those attributes include their title, description of the application if it's there, their last login date if it's available, their last password change date, when they have changed the password the last time. It will give you their status, whether active or inactive, and most importantly, it will fetch the roles each user you're targeting has within the system. So now that you have this information, the admin, the risk manager, can now, instead of even though he's an admin, he can certify, he can revoke, but if and when you're dealing with thousands of users, it's not possible for one single person to do this audit because he does not know everybody by name or everybody personally. So in that case, that person needs to delegate it out to the people these identities are reporting to or they're responsible for. And that could be either their direct line manager or their application owner or um, the group owner in the case of group audit. But let's say if these two individuals, the application owner and the manager, are not your targets, you want a whole different set of individuals to be part of this audit campaign. You can go for manual delegation, where you can type in the name of any individual you would like to become part of this process and become a reviewer for this audit campaign, and just assign it to them or assign it to a group. If you have a group within your Entra ID or Okta or your IAM, just assign it to that group, and that group will be responsible for doing the attestations for all these identities you have identified in an application or in a group. So let's say for this demo, I'll just go ahead and auto-delegate these users, these identities, to their respective managers for attestation. Now, the YouAttest tool has identified those managers, and now it has started pushing out notifications to these individuals, right? And it says over here, Kashif has delegated out this user to YA manager, which is one of the managers here. And if I switch my role just for a second and become a manager that has been involved in this process, this is what I'm going to see in my inbox or in my Slack channel.
And let me
Along with the
interject here.
link.
That's what a real review is, right? Having your IAM or your identity, manager or a worker, doing the Entra ID, and him checking, going, these all look good. That's not a review, and that the auditors don't like that, and will flag that. A real review has to be a business owner or a manager actually reviewing the rights and the privileges that you have granted. Yes.
Right, exactly. And when that reviewer opens up the audit, he or she will see only a subset of users that have been assigned to him. So these are for example, my two reports. Mark Gibson reports to me. He works in my department, so I know he should have this access to this resource. So I'll go ahead and recommend to certify this access for this ID. But this person here, Shirazam, maybe well, either he has left the organization, in which case I'll recommend to revoke his access because he's no longer there and he doesn't need that access anymore. Or if he has moved departments or changed roles and he reports to someone else now, instead of pushing this person back to the admin, I have the ability as a manager to delegate this out to the right manager. So I'll do that instead. Let's say I revoke because this person has left the company. That's all I have to do. Just clicking through the GUI, that's all I have to do. And plus, I can do something else here. So if I'm revoking, for example, or even certifying, and if I want to justify my action, I can put that justification in the comment box, which will become part of the final evidence, the final report that you are going to present to the auditors, right? So that justification is part of it, which most of the auditors usually ask for when presented with the report. So that's all I have to do. Now I switch back to my admin role as a risk manager. I refresh and see, well, one of my managers has completed the task by revoking one of the IDs and by certifying the other. But these two, they haven't been attended to by the manager. So we have an automated process. You don't have to write a single reminder email to these individuals, right? All you have to do is go, you can see in my account, there are email templates. They're all automated. You can program them as well according to what you want to send the message across. This is the reminder email. Let's say how you see that and modify this. So we have automated that. You can change the message. You can set the reminder over here instead of setting it up in your Outlook. and you can set the frequency of these messages going out to these individuals until they complete the task you have assigned to them. So you can say every day, every second day, both within the due date and after the due date as well. So let's say, just to complete the flow, I'll just go ahead and certify the rest of the two individuals as their manager, just to show you how the audit looks when it's 100% complete and what can you do after that. So I'll just recommend to certify. Now, up till now, it's just a worksheet. These are just a recommendation. Nothing's been executed inside your AD or in your cloud AD until you go back here to the listings page and you mark this audit as complete so that nobody can make any changes to the recommendations after this point. So it will lock it out. And now I can see an option that pops up and says execute. So whatever recommendations are there in that audit, I can execute those recommendations, especially the revocations, on my Entra ID or Azure AD or your IAM by suspending or deactivating that user from getting access to that group or that application. So you have prevented an unwanted identity accessing sensitive data within the organization. Now, here is the final part. Once you have executed that, it will come up in this format. The report is going to be in PDF or in CSV. And as I mentioned, your justification will also be part of this report, as well as all the profile attributes of the users you've been dealing with within the audit, and the action taken or recommended by the managers and the reviewers will be part of this report, along with the timestamp of that decision and that recommendation. So that's what you present to the auditors. And we have connectors built for Salesforce. We have connectors and integration built for AWS, so you can pull their groups and permissions and the data entitlements, the fine-grained entitlements from AWS, and do the same just as I showed you in case of Azure AD or Entra ID.
Yeah, we'll give you a contact information at the end of this, or you can just talk on this LinkedIn channel, and Nazir Inside Sales, we'll make sure we set up something. That was great, Kashif. That was perfect. That shows how we run through the attestations and create the report at the end that is submitted to the auditors for DORA and other compliance measures. Take it away, Bill.
Yeah, so let's take a few questions. Ralph, one of the questions that came in, will regulators be doing any proactive auditing, or are regulators only getting involved after an incident? Oh, you're on mute.
Mute.
Sorry. Yeah, there will be for sure audits after that DORA comes up, so that is for sure, that the regulators love to do that, to make some here and there testing, especially from bigger houses, but also from very important providers, to see if the regulation has been well understood and read. So they for sure will do something there, and they have also already lists of institutions that had problems with cyber attacks. I think that these will be, of course, the first ones to be tested or audited. That's one thing. The next thing is, of course, that they want to see if the adoption is as they hope it is, because they say we cannot wait until something happens, and then we'll see if they will do something. They will for sure see that fit for purpose means that they do the testing, that they do their reviews, and that they do also their homework in terms of managing. That means right now you really have to write down what you need. You have to see, here I have to make a gap analysis. I have to see whether my identity management is on top of things, and that I need, certain things that make my life easier here. That's also very clear. And I think that the YouAttest will provide you, of course, with no doubt, for identity management purposes all along.
Hey, Ralph, how does DORA and GDPR relate? Are there a lot of similar controls?
No, actually, DORA is something that has more or less to do with protection of personal data. That's more, let's say, an operational theme. How do you build in the personal information that you can control it, that you know where it goes to, that you know to which level you have to protect that. That's more a functional thing. Of course, personal information is very often subject of the attack, so you want to steal certain data of certain people, and that is automatically GDPR, let's say, relevant. Yeah. But it's another aspect. So DORA is really resiliency made as a goal. I want to be safer every day. I want to be more organized every day so that all the requirements of this regulation are fulfilled and that I'm compliant with. GDPR is more from the person who is the owner of the data. Are my data protected? And the companies who have to protect them say, okay, do you do all of that? Of course, it is kind of complementary, but it has different aspects. For GDPR, there is something like a test or an audit, will be done, but for example, testing or kind of a management data review or report will not be done. That means it is more functional, whereas DORA is really something that goes very deep and very wide. That means you really have to go through all details of third-party management, of testing all of your ICT risk items, and you have to do a lot of things. That means you have to establish structures, and it will eat up resources that the companies, especially the bigger ones, need to see if they need a DORA manager or if they want to integrate that in certain areas or departments, that they need to ramp up the resources here.
Thanks for that. Garrett, how often should access reviews be executed?
That's a great question. Okay. So when we started this project, our customers in the US, and then we have European customers as well, we're doing these like once a year, because that was like the minimum for things like PCI DSS and SOX. Now, we all know that 70%, if not more, of attacks are identity based, and there's always these insider attacks going on, and the overprivileged, and then even the accounts that leave attacks. So now we see it much more standard practice and recommended by the auditors that the full audit is done at least 4 times a year. And what we're seeing now is that on the privileged accounts, that a review is conducted once a month. But I'm going to also have Ralf chime in here. Ralf, what are you seeing? What are the best practices for identity reviews around DORA and just in general?
Well, around DORA, it will be that you need to do 2 things. First of all, if you plan tests, and it is recommended at least to have 1 general test of DORA per year. That means that you have to have all your things ready. That means also that if you make a big test, you need to be prepared, so that all the departments, especially identity management, needs to be ready and see that they have everything available. For me, I would say the management around that needs to be, if there's 1 test, a general test, you need to be prepared to make a kind of a dry run. That means at least you have to do that, let's say, every quarter, to be ready and to see that you have everything on board. And also from next January on, when there are certain levels of audits in the companies. As I know, I worked for two larger institutions for 15 years. There was internal audit, did always the predominant work. That means they will knock on your door and say, listen, we don't wait until the regulator comes by. We will check you right now to see if we are good, you know. So they have also that control and audit function internally established. And so that will be from day one on a regular work. That means, to answer your question again, this will be
Yeah.
a part of your regular quarterly and monthly work.
Okay.
Nice.
Who's going to be enforcing DORA?
Well, that's what I said before. It is right now something that will be addressed, right? So they look, is that in the end somebody who has the profile of an IT risk manager, or is it a profile to be a generally operational risk manager? So of course it is operational risk, and it will be mostly then a team of people. So you will have a DORA specialist in the IT, a DORA specialist in the risk department, and a DORA specialist in the business management. Because, you know, let's face it, the C-level has to be informed, and they need to have a direct access towards these guys. So there will be at least 2 or 3 people in every company, in every middle or bigger bank that have especially the task to prepare the tests, to keep up the levels and the standards, and also to be responsible if an auditor knocks on the door to report, to be the person of contact.
Hey, well, thanks for that, Garrett.
I can add something. I was also business continuity manager. It has the taste of a business continuity management thing. So it will be on that level, right?
Great. So, Garrett, can a consulting practice manage our MSP use YouAttest?
Yeah, in fact, the better person to answer that question is you, Bill. Bill is our channel director. So the question sounds like, hey, great, you guys talking about one company. What about me? I'm a consulting practice or an MSP, and I have multiple clients. Take it away, Bill.
Yeah, we're a perfect fit for the MSP/consulting practices. Anybody helping their customers out there with security and cybersecurity. We plug right in, and we can be up and running audits within an hour with an MSP, and an MSP can have hundreds of customers, tens and hundreds of customers, and manage it from one dashboard, and do the quarterly and monthly audits. So
Fantastic.
please reach out to us if you have interest in that, because I think you'll find we're a perfect fit to get up and running, and we're very, very price competitive. So anyway, I think we'll wrap this up. To make sure that we help the audience out there with the EU DORA compliance, YouAttest and Ralph's company DAQS has put together a joint proposal, and it's in the LinkedIn chat. So just click on a link and you can see what we can do to help you with DORA. And Ralf, why don't you tell people how to get a hold of you and your service organization?
Yeah, we'll also publish something in the next week, also on LinkedIn, via my company, and that everybody can reach out to me. Anyway, we can right now contact me there, and I will be available 24/7 to get these things addressed. And of course, everything that I will not be able to answer, Bill or Garrett can help me there, and that is for sure. I will be, of course, also in all questions DORA available for you. I have already done this for several institutions, and I'm sure that the questions will not run out there. I give everybody a short tip. Go regularly to the ESMA page and then see that they have right now put up a lot of documents to test, to make dry runs, and to see what you can do. And regarding YouAttest, I would say, yeah, let's see what in the next weeks we will come up with some ideas to make the service more understandable, and also to for my European clients to see that here you can really have a high efficiency gain if you really put your identity management on different feet.
Thanks, Ralph. And YouAttest can be reached at youattest.com or info@youattest.com. Thanks, everybody, for participating in this.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ralph. You were our first Luxembourg guest, so we're very happy for that. All the best.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Take care.